Are you ready to build the best looking gaming PC you've ever seen? Because in this video, that is exactly what we're aiming to do. We're doing an all-white gaming PC, we're going to turn it into a proper all-white gaming setup, and it's going to be RGB everything. An absolute massive thank you to Corsair for sponsoring this video. Let's get our build on. And there really are so many components to go through. I think we're going to do this as a little bit of a speed build, and we're going to kick off by actually talking about our chassis, as this is one of the few Corsair cases I haven't technically used before. This is the 5000X. This is actually a special edition that you can get from Corsair.com, where it comes with QL fans as standard. Then we can rotate the case round, and at this point you'll discover that you do actually have some airflow on the side, and you can go for a more traditional way and have fans at the front, radiators at the top, or if you want to do something a little bit different, then you can put some fans or even a radiator here, and then you get the benefit of even more airflow. It's pretty much going to depend what you actually want to put in your rig, because obviously if you're going for like a top-end RTX 4090, loads of different bits and bobs that consume a lot of power, you probably want more fans. But if you're going for something a little bit more modest, then obviously you can save yourself some money and I guess leave this bit bare like we have here. But it's nice to have flexibility, isn't it? And you'll see we have these lovely covers on the other side as well, which helps with your cable management. If you're a little bit of a stuffer, like I think a lot of people are, then you can sort of stuff your cables in and jam this shut. But assuming you're doing it properly, then you can just use this to help everything look nice and neat. But yes, sorry, I promised you speed. And at the moment, I'm doing slow. And I'd also like to point out that editor Carl is busy editing a different video today, so I'm actually having to edit this myself. So if it's lacking in substance or quality, then that's my fault. But then again, if it's better than all the others, then let me know. Carl, you're out of a job, mate. He's not really, he's great. But don't tell him that. The motherboard that we've got here though, or at least somewhere inside this box, is from ASRock, and it is the X670E. And there are quite a few different motherboards you can go for, but I was very limited in my choice because we wanted to go for a white one. X670E is probably higher end than I would recommend going, really, unless you actively want PCI Gen 5. The chip that we're using here today probably shouldn't be thrown and caught in the air, but it is the 7900X, and you can buy a non-X version of this. That is cheaper, that's what I would probably recommend. But actually, in fact, if you're watching this even like 3 or 4 weeks after this video comes out, then consider looking at the 7800X 3D, as I would wager that the performance of that for gaming is actually going to be a fair bit better than this. So let's open up our slot. And I will actually apologise for throwing the chip in the air. I am very confident on my catching skills. True story, I actually practiced from the young age of about 5 or 6, not with CPUs, but with fruit. I used to annoy my mum all of the time, so I've had a lot more than 20 years of experience of catching fruit, and I very rarely drop anything. I'm going to need a screwdriver for this bit, but I've left it on the floor again. That is a classic Centric move, that. And we're going to press on to the SSD. This top slot is PCI Gen 5, so if you do upgrade to a Gen 5 SSD at a later date, make sure that you do swap them around. But we're using Corsair's MP600 Pro XT here today. This has ridiculously fast read and write speeds. That is now starting to actually make a fair bit of difference, because games with direct storage are now releasing. Forsaken released the remake, the new one. I haven't actually tested it yet. Anyway, doesn't matter. Direct storage games are here, more and more are coming, and having faster storage makes more sense than ever. Gently lower it down into place. Make sure you've taken the protective film off this cover, then just drop it down into place and screw it back down. Then we can move on to our RAM. Here we're using some Vengeance RGB DDR5. As this is AMD, I would actually recommend that you get an Expo kit if you can, but in my experience, as long as the BIOS is up to date, most of the Intel optimized kits will work fine as well. This is a 32GB kit running at 5600 MHz. Waiting for that satisfactory click. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to say we're using this very white RTX 4070, but more on that a little bit later. Because we need the room to actually move on to the next component, which is our cooler. And this is actually a lot more exciting than you might think, because not only is this going to keep our Ryzen CPU cool, but they've now got a white edition for the one that comes with the LCD. So you can get this display on the front that gives you live readouts of temperatures and things, so you don't have to worry about overlays, or you can just put some funny GIFs on it and make your PC really stand out and look a bit more unique. Who would have thought GIFs were the answer? Or is it GIFs? Now, I'm pretty sure Jif is like that lemon juice that you get in the UK. But I mean, I don't understand the point of it. Just buy a lemon. They're 30p. They haven't been affected by inflation, as far as I can tell. They're still 30p in Tesco. I go shopping tomorrow and they're 50p. And it's incredibly simple. You just remove these 4 silver screws from the default AM5 mounting hardware. Then you get these tiny little 4 screws replace the ones that you've just taken away, and then you're ready to mount this inside your case, which means grabbing your case and laying it down flat, picking up your motherboard, screw it down with the screws that came in the hard drive cage, and then I think you are ready to actually have a look at your creation. And here you can clearly see a white motherboard, or at least one that has some white accents, is definitely going to help this case stand out and really look its best. I mean, obviously it's all personal preference, but the main thing is just to think about it before you start buying your components. And now we're going to unbundle all of our case connections, things like USB 3, USB-C, and then all of our front panel and audio. Power switch, and then I've already plugged in everything else, which is our USB 3, USB-C, and then our HD audio down the bottom left-hand corner. And as you'd expect for a perfectionist all-white build, we are going for some custom cables, and now is the time to open this box so we can get our CPU plugged into the top. Oh yeah, give me some of the hard stuff. Oh yeah, look at that. Braided. Oh, lovely jubbly. Make sure that you do plug 2 in, by the way, because these CPUs can actually use quite a lot of power. And now I think we can press on to the cooler. Or maybe we can't because the dog wants to go outside because he's seen some rabbits. Come on, Ajax, you know this is a silent zone when I'm filming. Have some respect, mate. But here we have our 360 cooler, and you can see all the bits really that can be white are white. And it does come with some ML Pro fans. They have this lovely white cable, so if you're going for like a perfectionist build, then obviously this will help in a white chassis. But because I want all of the fans to match, we are going to use some QLs that Corsair supplied along with everything else. And the main reason that you want to go for these, besides the cooling and very quiet performance, is the fact that they have light loops on both sides. If you want to stick with just a single and bring the cost down a little bit, then you can get the LLs, which have one on just one singular side. We're going to be using this as an exhaust, so we're going to want to make sure we put our fan facing towards the radiator, blowing throughout it, and that the cables are going to be accessible from the back side rather than plugging all of this in and then having the cables at the front and shouting, "I hate radiators," like Centric seems to do all the time because he's an idiot. Now we just need to line this up with the top, get this screwed down, all of the cables untied and tucked through the back. Then we can pick up the pump head and just gently lay this over those holes and then just fit this to the board. Then we can put our cover back on, unbundle yet more cables, plug in our CPU connector at the top. Then you can turn it round to the other side where things don't get more complicated, but obviously need plugging in. Grab the RGB hub that comes in the box with the cooler, then connect the pump to the hub, the fans to the hub. Try and tidy everything up the best we can. Next up, power supply, and I don't think anyone watching this is going to disagree with me that this is overkill. You do not need a 1500 watt power supply for most rigs. What we're going to use here, you'd probably be able to get away with like an 850 really, but if you really do want power for like days, you've got so many components, all of them use a lot of power, then clearly something like this is going to be the answer to your prayers. This is the HX 1500i 80 plus platinum, and obviously this is pretty exciting, but something I know loads of you will actually be arguably more excited for is the fact that Corsair now sell their braided 12 volt high power connections. You were getting a bit frustrated that your Nvidia 40 series card was going to look a little bit naff. Suddenly you've got the perfect cable for it, and it all starts to make a whole lot of sense. Let's spin it round. We've obviously plugged all of our power connections in, and I've got our graphics card one ready to go. And this is an RTX 4070 Ti, so it's got all of the latest features, things like DLSS 3.0, support for better ray tracing. Obviously Nvidia's pricing is something we have already discussed. You can find that video in the top right corner of your screen. But ultimately, if you are after a very high performance card at, I suppose, a less extortionate price than something like a 4080 or 4090, this is a solid option. But I wanted to use this in this video because it is all white. I mean, look at this. It's an absolutely beautiful GPU, but to be fair, there are actually quite a few cards that are available in this sort of white variant now, which is nice, but I like this. But enough talk. Let's grab our 4070 Ti and line it up with the slot, give it a good push home. With the magic of editing, grab our cable that's now miraculously lower down the PC and connect this at the top. And so I think that is our rig, hopefully complete, and hopefully it will work. But I mean, look at it. Look at it. I think the only thing we could do that would maybe make it look slightly better is if the motherboard itself was completely white. But I think we've absolutely smashed the theme there. What do you think of it from the front, from the side? Ignore this, I don't mind. Perfect, right? Open up the door, needs a little bit of improvement, but you don't need to see that. That's the point of the door. I mean, look, there we go. Boom. Clean as a whistle. We'll grab our Corsair wireless keyboard and our wireless mouse, Iron Claw wireless and the K100 Air. 3, 2, 1. It's alive! We have lights. Look at this system. That is quite something, isn't it? It really works, especially with the pink on the top of the GPU, with all of the RGB. It almost makes the graphics card look RGB without actually being RGB. I think this looks great. And I believe, BIOS, 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 BIOS. That looks promising. That looks promising. Thank you very much. I think let's grab ourselves a copy of Windows, load our XMP profile on the memory, and just like that, Windows should appear. All in all, pretty easy. Should we get it in our setup? And ladies and gentlemen, here we are, and just look at everything we have going on here. This is a lot, but it actually all syncs together. And let me show you. If we go into iCUE and minimize this, you can see the new mural system come into life, because here we've got all of our different Corsair peripherals. But then here's the thing, look a little bit deeper and you'll see that my Nanoleaf Lines is here alongside Philips Hue. And this is pretty much what this video is all about. Showing you that you can create a custom gaming PC with all of your Corsair RGB peripherals on the side and bring it all together with the lighting that's actually available in your room. And chances are you probably have already. So you can control everything with or without any special effects. If you just want to sync everything and say have everything blue, then at the clever button, everything turns blue. Here we've got Corsair yellow. So if you want something that's a little bit more static, shall we say, you can do this. But when it really starts to come alive is when you go into the mural section and you can pick a theme, and then you can have something as, what's the right way of saying this? Energizing and exciting, or you can have something that I think most people want that is very much in the middle. So you could have maybe audio reactive, you can create your own little image, and then if you go into the mural section, this is where you can drag everything to sort of match the parts of the image with what's actually going on in your setup. But I think the thing that a lot of people are really going to love is that there is actually a monitor screen option. So once you've enabled this, then what you've got going on screen will actually be replicated with not only your PC, but now your entire setup. But will it work with games though? I mean, I don't actually know. Should we find out? And the good news is yes, it does work with games. You can see our whole PC setup as you rotate the camera, as you move around. It does actually react with what you've got going on. And don't forget that you don't have to sync everything. This is what's cool about it. There's toggles for everything on and off. So if you maybe think that the Nanoleaf is a bit much while you're playing the game, but you really like the effects that you've got going on with a PC, because I think that looks really cool actually. I just love the fact that there's now finally somewhere to control pretty much everything all in one suite, regardless of whether it's PC, peripherals, lighting. It's brilliant. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the game and actually talk about performance though. And I'll start by saying that this is not a particularly well optimized game. It will run and it does look very, very good, but you will have to use DLSS to actually get the most out of it. And there is this semi-hidden option, which is ray traced ambient occlusion, and this does have a very big impact on your FPS. So as you can see at the moment, we're only getting around about 40 to 60 FPS depending on where you are in the game. I mean, don't get me wrong, it definitely looks a lot better as a result of the ray tracing, but it's not necessarily worth the trade-off unless you're running on something like an RTX 4090, 4080, or maybe you're just running at a lower resolution. Like this is absolutely fine, especially if you are going to use a controller, but if you are losing around about 10 to 20 FPS just by turning this setting on, personally, I don't think that actually makes that much sense, but each their own. But I think we should move on to our next title, and the rimmer's lit up nice and pink and, well, pink, with some Apex Legends. Look what happens when I click. Boom. Okay, we're on the floor, go, go, go. That's one, come on, come on. Oh, just me left. Oh, this could be a disaster, No, don't do that! Oh, got no health. Oh, and it's all over. Get good, Centric, get good. But let's move on to our next title, some Battlefield 2042. Again, we've got everything balls to the wall enabled, and you can see it's very nicely reflected in our setup. Well, let's have a very quick look in our options menu, and you can see we've got everything set to Ultra. but DLSS at the moment is off. So we're going to turn this to balanced for this resolution, and we'll leave reflex on but ray tracing off. But here we go, and you can see at the top left hand corner of your screen we're getting around about 100 FPS. So maybe not quite as high as you'd obviously get if you turn some of the settings down a little bit or run it at a lower resolution. Oh, wingsuit from that distance, is he mad? This is when looking at something like a RX, 7900 XT, XTX, or maybe an RTX 4080 would allow you to have your cake and properly eat it. But realistically, with a game like Battlefield, I mean, high settings is more than you need, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's worth spending the extra money just to be able to turn this up from high to ultra. Get him, get him! Oh, I'm so bad! So there we go then, our RTX 4070 Ti Ultimate White RGB everything video. This has had a lot of things going on, hasn't it? I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you like about this? What do you dislike? What would you change? And as always, if you do want to check out current pricing on anything in this setup, in this rig, in this room, you can find that link down below with my affiliate links. But absolutely smash the like button if you've enjoyed it, get yourself subscribed, and I'll catch you in the next one.